Great. So our next presenter is Rich Jackson. Rich is the USBR Watershed Management, or he's going to talk about USBR watershed management issues and opportunities at Cascade Reservoir. Rich received a PhD from the University of Wyoming in 2009. He began federal service with the BLM at the Marsing Field Office in 2007 as their riparian and water quality specialist. Then he was hired by the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation in 2013, working for the Snake River Area Office Environmental Compliance Group, and is now our lead contact for Lake Cascade. Rich, are you here to join us today?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Fantastic. Good afternoon almost to everyone. My name is Rich Jackson. I work for Bureau of Reclamation. I'm a natural resource specialist, and I work primarily in environmental compliance and water quality. Today, we're going to talk about Cascade Reservoir and some of Reclamation's watershed management issues and opportunities. So some quick facts. Cascade Dam was constructed in 1946. It's a zone earth-filled dam. Initial storage capacity is around 703,000 acre feet, which is about 653,000 acre feet of active space meaning usable space. And in 1995, from a reclamation sediment survey, they estimated total capacity had decreased down to 693,000 acre feet, about 646,000 acre feet of active space. So we had a little bit of sedimentation. The big picture on this is that that's not a lot of sedimentation comparatively, but there is sedimentation going on like occurs at most reservoirs. Specific dimensions and other statistics can be found at the Cascade Dam website from Bureau of Reclamation. There are two primary congressionally authorized uses for Cascade Reservoir. That is for irrigation and federal hydroelectric power. Reclamation has contracts with downstream irrigators, farmers, for specific amounts of storage space within the reservoir, of which we need to meet those contracts. However, that being said, recreation, fish and wildlife are recognized values, and reclamation will do what it can to protect and enhance these values as much as possible. So a little bit of background. So as said earlier, this reservoir is shallow, average depth around 26.5 feet. During the first 30 years of operation, it was drafted down a lot. It was drafted down to average annual down to about 16 feet. In the 1980s, there was an administrative decision made by Bureau of Reclamation to maintain the reservoir with a 300,000 acre foot minimum pool. And that equates to an average annual drawdown reduced to about 12 feet instead of 16 feet. And to put this in perspective, the difference between 12 feet and 16 feet is about 114,000 acre feet of water being held in addition to in the reservoir. This extra water has helped to maintain higher water quality and protect the reservoir fisheries from these really severe drawdowns, and to maintain recreational access in later summer season. Let's take a look at this and what this looks kind of a visual representation. Here we have a graph of Cascade Reservoir contents, the volume. The red line is how we manage it now. The blue line is how we managed it before the 300,000 acre foot minimum pool. And that space in between those is about 114,000 acre feet. May I draw your attention to right around, early July. You see these lines intersect and become very, well, on top of each other. Those happen to be where we have our salmon aug, our salmon augmentation flow requirements, and our irrigation requirements. If we looked at our typical water operations, how we operate now if we look here, let's start in March, we have flood operations clear to about June. Flood operations, we're mandated to make space within the reservoir as per Army Corps of Engineers flood rule curves. So we release water to make space for flood operations. Beginning of June, flood operations typically ends, and we go into our flow augmentation for salmon flow waters and irrigation demands, meeting those contracts that I said earlier. That goes on from June all the way here to about beginning of October. Then we drop our flows for a minimum flow of around 200 CFS that I believe is a mandated agreement with Idaho Power. So this is our typical operations. So why show this? Our operations and the amount of water that we keep in Cascade Reservoir is, since we put in that 300,000 acre feet minimum pool, that has not given us very much wiggle room, not much flex in operations. We can, for lack of a better term, tweak some of our operations, but there's not a whole lot of room for meeting flood operations, for meeting flow log and irrigation demand, and then meeting our minimum flows. Okay. So what do we do? Well, there's a lot of stuff that we do at Cascade Reservoir for water quality. A lot of it direct and indirect benefits. One of the things that we do on resource management is outreach. In 2018 and 2019, we had an open house in Cascade. One was at the Whitewater Park and the other one was at the Boy Scout camp. And there we had Idaho Fish and Game representatives, Idaho Parks and Rec people, and a whole slew of reclamation specialists and some management there to answer individual questions and concerns, a lot about water quality, a lot about algae blooms, a lot about sedimentation. So this has really helped, is our the outreach we've done. Other thing that we do is we participate, though fairly sporadically, in the Valley Soil and Water Conservation District meetings. There we make contacts with individuals and have funding opportunities for small projects to help aid in water quality projects in the area. We also do quite a bit for erosion control. We encourage a special use retaining wall erosion permits from private landowners. These are people that are adjacent to the reservoir. We average anywhere between 5 to 15 of these permits a year. And just to let everyone know that these are usually pretty cut and dry and very quick for the landowner to be able to enact. However, larger projects will require Army Corps approval and DEQ review. Reclamation also works with Idaho Department of Parks and Rec with doing some retaining wall and erosion projects near rec sites. And another thing we do is signage. And this is a funny haha. We could do a lot better on signage. We're lacking a lot of signage on reclamation properties. We have new signs ordered and we have plans for future postings. And we want to use this to identify the authorized uses for the specific areas. And an example of this is maybe to restrict ATV use in some areas to prevent excess erosion or damage to the properties. We do quite a bit of land management around Cascade Reservoir. One of our focuses is on forest health. We issue special use permits to remove hazard trees from near private structures, near private lands, near trails and accesses. And probably more importantly, we have contracted with Boise National Forest for fire suppression and fuels reduction. Because of the wildland urban interface, this is very important for the area. Though I do have to say that there's been very few fires on reclamation lands. And also we do weed treatments. We contract out weed treatments. We survey around 1,000 acres and treat about 100 acres a year. These are mostly on wildlife management areas, WMAs. So the entire purpose of this forest health land management focus is to incrementally protect or improve the soils to prevent erosion into the reservoir. Oh yes, and land management would be remiss if we don't talk about fencing. Reclamation has a mix of electric barbless and pole fencing around much of our boundaries. We have a current fencing project that began in 2020 and is going on this year. It is east of the West Mountain Road from Poison Creek Recreational Area south to Reclamation Forest Service border, and I believe it's completed up to the Osprey Point. We've partnered with the Valley Soil and Watershed District and Idaho Fish and Game to do this project. And this is primarily to keep livestock out of the reservoir. Future actions. What's Reclamation plan to do in the future for Lake Cascade? We want to continue to work collaboratively with the Valley Soil and Watershed District. We want to continue to work with them, go to their meetings, have opportunities of funding projects that can benefit water quality at Cascade Reservoir. We want to continue our relationship with the Idaho Fish and Game in these projects of fencing and the stuff that we do with wildlife management areas. We also want to continue our partnership with Idaho Department of Water Quality, whether it's funding or in-kind work from our water lab here in Boise. If or when a TMDL or we have a watershed advisory group or a technical advisory group for this watershed set up, Reclamation would like to participate in that. And even local interest groups and private citizens, you have questions, concerns, or problems that maybe Reclamation can help with, give us a ring. Maybe there is something that we can do. When I set my presentation to you guys to put them together with all the other presentations, these are some useful links. We have the Cascade Dam reclamation link, the resource management plan, and the NEPA involved in that, shoreline erosion link, and then hydromet. If everyone's not introduced to hydromet, that's kind of neat. It'll tell you real-time statistics on reservoir contents and withdrawals. So if you have any questions or concerns about Bureau of Reclamation properties around Lake Cascade or any type of water quality issues, give me a ring. I'm Rich Jackson. I suggest going through the email route with this whole COVID thing. I'm not in the office very much, so if I can't answer your question, I'll find somebody who can. Thank you very much for having me. Back to you, Gary.
Richard, thank you so much.